So, another new heli today. Two new helis today. This is the Blade 70S, and it is in fact a rebranded Esky 150. Now, this has its pros and its cons. It's a very good helicopter. Been around for a while. I've never had an Esky 150, so I probably wouldn't have bought this if I already had an Esky 150, quite honestly. I paid $90 Canadian for this. Comes with its own little transmitter. Now, notice that it says 2.4 GHz FHSS transmitter. Which means that that's HiSky. So actually I have other transmitters that would work with this. The, what is it? The one that came with the HiSky HFP80 would work with it. And the one that came with the WL Toys 922 is HiSky as well, I believe. So I haven't tried, but they should work with it. What won't work with it is a Spektrum receiver. You cannot bind this to your DX6 or DX9 or whatever. It is not a Spektrum. It is not a Spektrum product. No, I'm not going to sit on that. I was going to sit down, but I'm not going to sit on that bench because it's wet. Again, it was frosty, and then the frost has melted. Now, generally, this is an extremely robust, well protected. See how the tail motor's protected and everything. It's an extremely, and even the control rods to the head, fixed pitch, of course, stabilized. It's a very well protected helicopter. One thing that's a bit annoying about it is you have to take the whole way the battery works is a bit annoying. You have to take off the canopy to put the battery in, and it's somewhat fiddly. Well, it's not so much fiddly to get off, it's fiddly to get back on, because you've got to kind of hook these little bits round the bottom first and then get the pins in. Now, you do need to turn the transmitter on first, but I'm just fiddling with batteries at the moment. The battery that it comes with, not that one, the battery that it comes with is this. One cell, 150 milliamp hour with a little rat tail on. Now the problem with that is, you've got to plug it into that little plug there, and it's a devil. Well, it's a bit hard to get into the plug, and really hard to get out of the plug without damaging it, because there's nothing to get hold of. You don't want to pull it by the wires, really. But trying to get under those little things and pull it out is terrible. I wondered if you might be able to fly it with something like this, with an adapter on. I mean, that would plug in. This is like an MCP. Well, it's actually a battery from the WL Toys 911. He's a bit bigger. I think we'll try now to fly him with the battery he's supposed to be flown with, and we'll see. This is not actually strictly a maiden. I've flown this indoors before. Odd little transmitter. This, instead of sliding anything, you have to press this button and hold it down to turn it on. And that is on. It's hard to tell in the sun, but that light is on now. Okay. So then, this is like, in many ways it's like a bigger helicopter. You have to put the battery on the Velcro at the front here and make sure that you put this thing on. But you can see it's not the easiest thing to put in, and believe me, it's harder to take out than to put in. So we got to push this little cable here in here. I could see that being a distinct point of potential damage here. It's very hard to do. There we go. That's in. Okay, so now that's what you're supposed to have. You've got a green light on this side and a steady blue light, a slightly blinking blue light on that side, which means he's in standby mode. And we'll get to that back to that in a minute. Now you've got to put this thing on, which, as I say, is a bit of a bugger. You've got to fiddle around with the bottom here. Well, I find it quite difficult. Maybe I'm just ham-fisted, but I find it a devil to get this battery on. What the hell is... What are we hitting? What's hitting what here? I see. No, I don't. Something's always hitting something. That's the problem. Okay, I think we're getting the pins somewhere near. Yes, we got it now. There we go. Now, in all fairness, They do describe this entirely as an indoor helicopter, so I suppose I'm violating the terms by flying it outdoors. And it is more an indoor helicopter, and I entirely would fly it mainly indoors. It's just a lot easier to make videos outdoors. That's partially why I'm trying to fly it outdoors. Now, I think there's pretty much absolutely zero wind. Now, it doesn't have a throttle cut, but it has a sort of self-throttle cut, which confused the heck out of me initially. You have to stick the throttle, which way round is it? You have to put the rudder stick all the way over to the right to arm the motor, and then you have to start it within about 10 seconds, else the motor disarms itself again. And well, indoors you can tell by the fact the light is flashing, but I'm not going to be able to see the light here. Yeah. Otherwise, it's very confusing. You go to power it up and it won't power up, because when it's in that standby mode, it won't, with the blue light flashing slowly, it will not power up. You have to put it into ready mode by holding the rudder stick to the right for several seconds or something, and then it goes into, I think the blue light flashes quickly or something, and that means it's in ready mode and you can actually power it up. But you have to power it up within a few seconds or it'll go back into standby mode. Now, this is good for safety, but it's a bit confusing. This is a fixed pitch, flybarless, stabilized helicopter. It's not, technically speaking, safe. I don't remember the whoa, and see now the wind is getting it a little bit. There's a tiny hair of wind getting up and it's getting it, and I don't know if it shows any signs of going too far away. I will drop it because I don't want it going basically off the runway. It's not meant for this. I agree. It's meant for beginners mainly, and it's meant, although anybody could have fun flying it. You can do all sorts of things. Nah, see, it's going up now. I dropped it then because the last thing you want is a lot of altitude with a fixed helicopter. The wind catches it more and then you can't get it back down. So I just let gravity bring it back down there. Okay, well, it's a nice little helicopter. You can't, in the States, I believe it's about $60 US. As I say, I paid $90 Canadian for it. Fighter having trouble. There's a hair of wind. The air's barely moving and I'm having trouble fighting. Oh, well, fair. Actually, there was a little bit more of a gust of wind then. I'm trying to see if I can. It is 4-channel. It's a 4-channel helicopter. Yeah, we go. We landed it on the. Now, as I say, you just wait like 5-10 seconds, and it will basically go into self-throttle cut mode. Yep. See, now it's in self-throttle cut mode. I put the throttle up and down, and nothing happens. And that happens automatically, and as I say, you have to hold that left stick all the way over to the right for several seconds to put it back into armed mode. Nice little helicopter, basically. Interesting sort of decision by Blade to do this, to, license the Esky rather than developing something themselves, which is pretty much what they usually do. But, I think it's an excellent little helicopter. It's fun, can be fun for anyone to fly inside. Definitely way more interesting and sensible to fly than those little, collective pitch 3-channel things. It's a 4-channel flybarless helicopter. It flies quite nicely, and for basic level helicopter flight, you could learn quite well with this. Obviously, not going to do any stunts. It's not meant to. Anyway, let's try and take it apart again now. And I'm going to do this without... Normally, I'd shut the camera down at this point, but because this guy's a bit fiddly, I thought we'd just leave it and see what I can do here. It's not so hard to get that off, but the tricky part, as you can imagine, let me get this off the Velcro. But you don't want to... There's no way you should just grab the battery and yank it, because you're gonna have a dead battery very soon if you do that. So you kind of, I don't know, there we go. Yeah, you got to get your fingernails or a knife or something under there, and then to turn this guy off, you just hold the button down again. and it's off. Which I'm not wild about. I'd rather they just had a sliding switch with an off and on position, because I find it much clearer to know whether the thing's on or off when I do that, especially outdoors where you wouldn't use it outdoors really. Yeah, I mean, there is a light. That light's, I can't really tell outdoors, but that light's on purple or blue or whatever when it's on, and not on when it's off. So there you go. The Blade 70S, essentially also known as the Esky 1. If you buy the standard Esky 150, you'd be getting the same thing as this, basically. Now, there is a version of the Esky, I think it's the Esky 150 HP, which gets a bit more complicated, because that has a port on the bottom there, where that pass quality control thing is. The HP version has a port on there for plugging a satellite receiver into. So you could actually make that version work with Spektrum, but it's kind of complicated because you've got to program it. You've got to program both the computer, not just program your transmitter, you've actually got to program the controller in the helicopter. So it's definitely for, involves some advanced mucking around to try and get the Esky 150, I think XP or HP, I forget, version working, with your transmitter of choice. You can get it working with virtually any transmitter with the appropriate satellite and programming the controller in the helicopter in your transmitter, right? But this is just, fairly cheap and ready to go. And you can buy the Esky 150 fairly cheap and ready to go as well. You can just buy the standard Esky 150. And they have a scale version, I forget what it's a scale model of, but like a Sky Ranger or not an Apache, but something or other, sort of Sky Wolf perhaps is it. It's sort of long black thing. It's the same basic helicopter, just with a scale model body on. I might even buy that version just for comparison, but that would fly essentially the same as this, I would imagine, more or less. Probably not quite as well with a scale body on, because it'll be a bit heavier. Anyway, there you go, the Horizon 70S. I would definitely recommend it, yes, for sure. I think anyone could have fun with it, quite honestly. I'd recommend it to someone who'd never flown a helicopter before as a first helicopter to fly with. And, even if you fly a lot of helicopters, you could have a lot of fun with this indoors and whatever. It's, and you can't really complain for the price, especially even better if you're in the States. It's a little more expensive for us in Canada, but there you go. The Blade 70S. Essentially also known as the Esky 150.